Leipzig took a place in the quarter-final, beating Spurs by 4-0 on aggregate. This game kind of happened as you would expect it to. The better team in the first leg, proving once again they're the better team in the second leg by a bigger margin this time around. Yeah,
the only question coming into this would be, what would Spurs' approach be? Given that they had to overhaul a 1-goal deficit, had key players missing, which everybody, I'm sure, will mention, in Son and Kane. Do you sit back, try to soak up pressure and score later on, or do you get going from the get-go? In the end, this was all about Leipzig. They got a goal after 10 minutes, 2-0 after 21, including having one ruled out. It was as easy as could be for them, and Spurs really had no answers.
I saw an interesting tweet saying that Leipzig won't have an easier game in the Bundesliga this season. I think that's testament to how bad Spurs are.
It was lifeless from Spurs. At no point did you get the sense that they were truly in the match and that they had a sense of belief that they were truly in the match. And so, well, when you give up a goal 10 minutes in, you're almost kind of like, well, there he goes. Yep. And that's sort of, if you just look at the whole performance and really the attitude of the players and the feeling around Spurs, that's sort of the feeling that you get, that it's, well, it was over. We knew it was over. We kind of had to show up anyways because, well, we're supposed to be here, but we didn't truly believe that we were going to be able to pull this off. And as you're watching the game, you just got the sense that they could have played for 200 minutes, 300 minutes, and Spurs were never going to score. Yep. There wasn't anything about this team that truly gave you a sense of, you know what? They have a plan. They're going to execute that plan. They're really going to force Leipzig into and making it uncomfortable for them. Or there was no plan. There was no identity. And you can say that about Spurs, not only in this game, but you can say it now for the last month and a half or so.
Mark Ogden, it was interesting because we had the UK feed on that we were watching, and obviously they're trying to sell it. You know, Spurs can make the comeback. Remember what they did against Ajax. Never in a million years watching this match did you give them any hope of getting back into it.
No, and, you know, Tottenham, to be fair, they rode the luck quite a lot last season in the Champions League. The Man City game, you know, they were fortunate to go through thanks to VAR and a couple of strange decisions. The Ajax game, again, was a bit of a freak performance, a freak result in Amsterdam. They deserved to get to the final, of course, but they did kind of push the luck a bit, and I think this season that luck's run out. And, you know, there are lots of reasons. The injuries, like Shaka says, you know, Kane, Son, Steven Bergwijn, who's come in and done well, and he's injured as well now. At the end of last season, Spurs looked like a team that had kind of run out of steam. They needed a bit of new blood, and Pochettino wasn't happy at the time, and they didn't bring in the new blood they wanted. He left halfway through the season. Mourinho comes in. There was a little bit of a bounce, but it's not looking good. And, you know, I was one of the guys who said at the start that I thought Mourinho was a good fit for Tottenham, but, you know, to be fair, at the moment, I have to say that that's probably a bad call because he's gone in there and it's not really worked. You know, they're slipping out of contention for the top four in the Premier League. They were awful in the Champions League today. They were awful in the FA Cup against Norwich last week. And I think everybody at Tottenham just wants the season to end. But when it does end, there's no guarantee it'll get any better because the problem with Mourinho is when the summer comes, he'll want to spend a lot of money to bring new players in. And his track record at his last couple of clubs at Chelsea and Man United suggests that when Jose Mourinho has money to spend or wants money to spend, it doesn't usually end well.
Mark, why were you so wrong?
Well, on what? On everything on Tottenham? No, I think the reason when he went in, I thought that Tottenham needed a manager that would demand more of them than Pochettino. Not demand more, but have that winning mentality that would raise levels, raise performances. I think Pochettino would come to the end of his tether with the players and the squad. I thought Mourinho would go in there and just give everybody a kick at the backside and make them tougher, make them harder. But maybe that Tottenham squad isn't able to be tougher or harder. Maybe that Pochettino was right, that they couldn't go to another level because the mentality that isn't quite there. You know, you need to have a special mentality to play for a really big club, a Barcelona, a Real Madrid, a Man United, a Liverpool. And Spurs aren't at that level, and to get to that level, they need those players. And maybe a lot of the Spurs players aren't capable of going from where they are to where they need to be. And I think Mourinho's finding that now.
And you're also in a problem as well, aren't you, Mark, in a sense that you mentioned bringing in players in the summer. You've got to keep hold of your star player. And surely if you're Harry Kane and you're watching how things have unfolded over the last few months, despite the fact he's been so committed to Spurs in the past, you've got to be thinking, do you know what? Maybe I have to leave here if I'm going to get any sort of success.
I agree completely. I think Harry Kane should have gone 2 years ago. I think that Harry Kane is probably I think he's now missed the chance to get a big move, because if you look back at his last 3 or 4 seasons, he does pick up injuries, and he's picked up injuries that keep him out for 2 or 3 months at a time. This hamstring injury has kept him out since, I think, December, early January. He's not back yet. I don't think a big club like a Barca, Real Madrid or Juventus are going to take a gamble on Harry Kane at 27, 28, because the injuries are beginning to stack up. So maybe he's missed a chance to get the big move from Tottenham. There are other players at Tottenham that might fancy a move. You know, Son, I think, deserves a bigger stage. Dele Alli's plateaued at Tottenham. He's not really moving. He's not really progressing. So it's a big summer for Tottenham. You're right. He does have a battle keeping his best players, but I do worry about Tottenham in the sense that Jose Mourinho, when he's got money to spend, or when he doesn't have money to spend, he causes problems. He lights fires, and he rows with people at the club. And I just fear for Tottenham this summer. I think it's going to be a very kind of acrimonious summer, because he'll want a lot of players in, and Tottenham, as we know, don't spend a lot of money on players. So I don't think Mourinho will get what he wants. And
the problem is, Shaka, you've got your record signing, Ndombele, who, of course, he's come out and criticising in the media as well. If I'm a Spurs fan, I'm just worried about this whole house collapsing in front of me at the moment.
Absolutely. And listen, here's the truth. You saw a good team and a bad team. RB Leipzig are a very good team, and Spurs quite clearly aren't. And there's an arrogance around Spurs that I'm not sure if is born out of an English football and Premier League mentality. I'm not sure if it's born out of what you saw from them last season, or the fact who their manager is. Leipzig have lost 5 games in all competitions all season long. Spurs have lost 4 games in the last 3 weeks. I'm not sure why this result is much of a surprise. And as a result, unless something within this club changes drastically between now and August, and maybe Mourinho is the man to get Levy to open up the purse strings and make Spurs into genuine contenders.
But who are they going to get, Shaq? That's the problem as well. There's other teams looking to rebuild. What does Spurs offer you? A lovely stadium and an angry manager.
I totally agree. And you saw that play out this January. Everybody knew that if Spurs were to realistically contend, not just in the Champions League, but to push to finish top 4, that they would have to spend money in January. Yet there was nothing of significance. When they did spend money last summer, now that player, in on Ndombele, as you mentioned, is probably looking for a way out. If you're on the outside and looking for a big club, a big move, a big opportunity, and Spurs come calling, as much as that may pique your interest, if there is anybody else even close in terms of size of club and opportunity, all of a sudden Spurs find themselves a little bit lower down the pecking order.
And you're mentioning Mourinho as part of that future. I'm saying he shouldn't be here to begin with. And this is something that we discussed when he was first appointed. And so for Spurs fans out there, I tell you, we told you so. This is what's happening right now. It's the conversation we had at the very beginning when this appointment happened. When Jose Mourinho was brought in, the concern was, you know what, this is going to last for the first 2-3 weeks. It's going to be great. Everybody's going to be happy. There's going to be a reaction. You're going to get excited as a Spurs fan. And then reality is going to set in. And once reality has set in, we have found that he goes back to the things that were troublesome in Manchester United. And so people are getting thrown under the bus, and players are going to be put out there, and everybody's getting blamed except Jose Mourinho. And yet we think that, you know what, he's going to get the summer, and he's going to get the players, and this team is going to get better. Why? Where in the recent history of Jose Mourinho can you tell me there is a track record of success of putting a team together, rebuilding it, and actually working in a way that you would expect a top team to work? Don't tell me about Inter. Don't tell me about Porto. Don't tell me about... Let's look at the recent history, and let's see and evaluate a coach and a manager who has had difficulties in getting the very best out of their team. And the reaction cannot be blaming everybody else except yourself.
We've got to have a word on Leipzig. We haven't spoken about them at all. There were 2 teams, of course, in this. Yeah. They did excellently well.
They were simply exceptional. Got the result in London as they needed. And again, just as I say, you wanted to see what Spurs' approach would be. I wanted to see how they would come out of this. And they didn't lose anything about their identity. They weren't scared of Spurs. They didn't play within themselves. They weren't trying to defend a lead. They were very good value for taking the lead after 10 minutes. And then this game being over after 20. They have been simply outstanding. They were outstanding over 2 legs. Deserve all the credit that they get.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.